Welcome to Buckets. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, coming to you from the Tommy John Home Studios. This is the Future Jays. We're going to talk about the epic battle between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics on Sunday. Futures ramifications both in the MVP and the title market, and possible implications on the title matchup if those two teams were to reach the NBA Finals. And just a gosh darn good game of basketball that was played on Sunday. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about MVP. We're going to talk a little bit about Jimmy Butler stuff, and I'll tell you what I have heard from people around the NBA in the hashtag sauces, so that you can have an idea of that. Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you not to bet on any team that trades for Jimmy Butler, and to do the opposite, because I've been trying to stress this, but especially with Jimmy Butler, do not do this. Please, God, do not bet on whoever trades for Jimmy Butler. Everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. It's the best way for you to track your picks. You get up-to-second information where the bets and money are coming in on. You can read great stuff. Like Brandon Anderson's already got a hot read-up on the Buffalo Bills versus the Denver Broncos. So you can go read and check out what bet he's already put in for NFL Wildcard Weekend. You can check out Chris Raybon is going to have stuff up from what he thinks the immediate bets that he's already made are going to be. You can catch the live show of the favorites in there. There's all sorts of great stuff, as well as all of our NBA content, as well as we keep chugging along through the NBA season. Also, make sure you go to youtube.com/The Action Network, and you can check out all of our great shows. Hit the like and subscribe for us. Go over there, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what was your favorite thing, or what was your big takeaway from the Boston Celtics versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, which we'll talk about on tonight's show. Also, one more thing. The bets that we give out tonight when we do best bets for the Monday in the association, we're going to do quick slips on those, which means that there's going to be a link, and if you click on the link, it will take you directly to be able to log those bets. So if you want to tail us, we're actually going to have the quick slip in the episode description, so make sure to check that out. Our crack producer, David, putting a little bit of extra work in to do that, so make sure to check out the quick slips link in the podcast and video description. I'm joined by Joe Dellera and Jim Turvey. They're the Future Jays. Joe Dellera rocking a beanie. I don't remember Joe ever rocking a beanie tonight. Joe Dellera is on Twitter in the Action Network at Joe Dellera. You can find him also on the podcast, the Cash That podcast, which you should go subscribe to right now and get more great betting information. We're also joined by Jim Turvey from Roto Grinders. He's working away all day long throughout the week, giving you great projections on props. His ROI is quite frankly disturbing. It's so high this season, and I'm angry about it. I'm hurt. I'm mad. But our guy Sean Rochester in the Action Network Discord, which you can also go check out, post it pretty regularly, and it's just absolutely terrifying. The last one logged, which was back on a week ago, he'll probably post one tomorrow morning. Sean Rochester, Jim Turvey, 144 bets logged with a 23.12% return on investment.
I did get swept
Jim
the
Turvey.
last few days, so it's coming down a little bit. We were flying a little bit too close to the sun, little Icarus vibes over here.
You can only get worse.
So you definitely want to tail him. Start fading him right now, because it's catch that falling knife. Boston Celtics and Oklahoma City Thunder play on Sunday. An absolutely terrific game that, like, I don't know, an eighth of the intended audience got to see because they first put the thing on fucking League Pass before flexing it to NBA TV, which most homes don't get. I just real briefly, if you work at Amazon for Prime or you work at NBC Sports, please save us from this nightmare.
Please.
I don't want to see Warriors-Lakers round 700. I don't care. Please show us actual teams that can win the actual NBA title playing one another. It was a great game, though. It was phenomenal. Thunder first half, there's like so much X's and O stuff I can get into this about. I will try and contain my nerdistry. Jim Turvey, what was your big takeaway from the Thunder win over the Boston Celtics?
I think the natural side to start on is the Boston side. I think seeing that second half with was it 26 points that they scored in total? It's kind of the stereotypical worry about Boston being, man, when, if the threes aren't dropping, the clutch offense, all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's the gut reaction, but we've kind of debunked that a little bit. And their clutch offense has actually been really good over the last, like this season and the end of last season. It was good in the playoffs. It really hasn't been as big a worry. So to me, I'm not as worried about that part of it for Boston. Today was just a day their shots didn't go down. They got as many threes basically as they normally do. I'm not super worried about that. I do think there are a couple of troubling signs coming out of that game, though. And I think the two biggest things, Joe, I hate to say this because I know you got that 100-1 ticket. I think the Peyton Pritchard thing is starting to slow down a little bit. It is, like Matt, you've kept saying, people just guard this dude. It seems like it's finally kind of slowing to a halt. In his so against New York, Cleveland, OKC, arguably the biggest contenders that Boston will have to go through this year. The 4 games, 7 for 28 for Pritchard from 3 in those games. His typical 4-game stretch for him this season's 15 for 34. So way more attempts and way more makes. It seems like in these games that really matter, Pritchard is not quite the weapon he is against, to be honest, the Detroits of the world, like Jaylen Brown said. That in and of itself isn't a big problem. He's the 6th man. What is more troubling is theoretically you'd love to use him to, if a certain player is getting picked on or isn't hitting shots. Drew Holiday was the one getting picked on today on both ends of the court, and that is not a great sign for the Celtics. Now, they have a lot of incredible two-way players, but Drew is starting to, he's a little bit older, and it's starting to show on the defensive side. We even saw at times, like, Drew is going to be the guy that's going to have to beat some of these teams. We've seen other teams do that on the offensive side. If he's not able to hang on the defensive side either, then it's really like, all right, now Boston's kind of got 4 guys, maybe 22 minutes of Horford, maybe Luke Cornett, but then in a big game, are we really looking at Horford and Cornett and like really stress testing that? I came out of this with, the threes are the threes. They're going to go down. They're not going to go down. That's not the end of the world. If Drew Holiday isn't quite the level he is in seasons past, I think that's probably the most troubling thing to me and what really stood out of the game for me.
Yeah, lots kind of get there. It was just really gratifying to see a team actually just take Peyton Pritchard and just stuff him in the locker. It was just really good. I just really enjoyed that. And it's not that I don't I don't have anything against Peyton. It's just a matter of Pritchard's the kind of guy that has been skating by and teams have let him skate by. And for me, it's more about that. It's about do you guys want to win this game? Because if you get beaten by Peyton Pritchard, you're going to lose. If you let them make Peyton into a viable option for them, if they're able to get through these minutes with Peyton Pritchard and he's a positive, and they're like, yeah, no, we're good here, you are doomed. You are never going to win that game because those stagger lineups with Boston are so good. The starters themselves are awesome, but it's the problem with Boston is every lineup that they put out there is really, really, really good. And so being able to take certain lineups and actually really attack them, I think is significant. Joe Dellera, you watched this game. What did you think about this one, and what would you kind of take away from it?
I think one of the biggest things that we saw was Jaylen Brown was awesome in the first half. And then Oklahoma City, I think Dagnall just said we put Lou Dort on him. And there's been conversations, people saying, well, maybe Lou Dort is somebody that Oklahoma City packages in a deal at the trade deadline to try to improve somehow, right? They need to get better. I think that would be a mistake. And I think you can see exactly why it's a mistake. You can put him on some of these dudes that aren't as fast, and the physicality, and especially depending on the way the whistle goes, if there's going to be a tight whistle, then he's going to be in trouble because he plays so physical. But in the postseason, especially, we see the refs swallow that whistle, and that's where Lou Dort is going to be incredible. And we've seen it now at multiple stages in multiple different instances where if he's allowed to get away with the physicality, then he's going to be dominant on the defensive end as long as it's somebody that's not super, super fast. And now they have Caruso, you don't have to really worry about that type of matchup for him. So I think that was really something. And that was a very simple halftime adjustment by Dagnall. And it changed the entire trajectory of the game, I think, because of the way that Boston was just kind of cruising on offense. And when you remove Jaylen Brown, who then struggles to facilitate for some other people, I think that matters. And when we look at what Boston did from an assist perspective, the fact that Tatum had 1 assist, I think is bad news bears for them. If that's a situation where Tatum can't get anybody else going, I don't want to see him play iso ball. He was 7 for 17 from the floor. We know that he's not somebody that's going to go shoot 60-something% every night that he goes out there. It's hard for him to do that, but his game is so multifaceted. But if you're going to cut the assists out, then I think that's problematic for Boston as well. I think to a degree, we'll see what the potentials look like when you shoot that poorly from beyond the arc. Yeah, it's going to happen that you're not going to rack up assists. But I do agree with Jim the shot profile that Boston wanted, I think, was there. It just was poor execution. At the same time, I don't even know if I want to say it's so much poor execution as it was that Oklahoma City's defense is, to me, I think, perfectly tuned to bother what Boston does because of the personnel. Everybody almost matches up exactly right with what Boston has. I think that Boston's biggest mismatch is probably Porzingis on Hartenstein, but when they bring back Chet, I think that's fine. Oklahoma City's going to say, okay, great. I think that Chet matches up well with Porzingis. So that I think was one of the harder parts that Oklahoma City had to navigate. And I think that they still did a good job between Porzingis and Horford in limiting their overall impact in the game.
I think the switches conversation is really important here because you mentioned Dags mentioning that they put Lou Dort on to Brown to shut him down second half, turn the water off. The other thing that Dags talked about post-game was that when they were giving those switches, one of the problems that was that OKC in the beginning was basically they weren't playing with physicality and they weren't pressuring the ball. So here's the key on that. You can give a switch, and this is the problem, is that when everybody started switching, like some teams had success with switches starting in like the Warriors in 2015. And as it's a copycat league, everybody started emulating that. There are good switches, and there are bad switches, and there are switches you should give, and there are switches you should deny. But what Dags is really interested in talking about is that if you switch, but you challenge them on if you're physical with them and you challenge with ball pressure, it keeps them from getting a deeper seal on you or pushing you further into the paint, which means you can then help more aggressively. And that's one of the things that if you go back and you watch, OKC did a lot of, which is they didn't let Boston just back them down. Didn't let Boston just get to wherever spot they wanted, because they shot like 88% for a while and from 2-point range. I was really impressed with Boston because Boston was like, oh, like this was the real test of like, oh, hey, you're going to try and give us the twos and take away the threes. All right, well, we're going to get the threes anyway because we're just going to get them up. And we're going to attack you on the inside over and over and over and over and over again. And we're going to score. And we're going to make that so painful for you, you're going to have to send help. And I really thought that it was working. And what was interesting is if you look at the first half and the second half and how the Thunder closed out, there is a marked difference in that they wanted Boston shooting twos in the first half. Like they wanted that. And they got killed on it. But what happened then was like, and Boston fans are going to be like, whatever, we just missed shots. Like, okay, all right, fair enough. I'm telling you that having watched all of these games and seen all of these things from Boston, those aren't rhythm threes. And if you want the data on it, it just pretty much comes down to this, which is unguarded jump shots in this game. OKC had 19. Boston had 8 total per Synergy Sports. Guarded jump shots. Boston had 23. OKC had 12. So OKC was generating really good looks and missing them. And that's okay because OKC's not as good of a shooting team. So like there's going to be some of that variance. Lou Dort got really hot late and did a very good job. I was kind of like, oh boy, Dort, like this is going to be like the second game where Dort, and then he just like delivered over and over and over again late. He was clutch as shit tonight. But I do think like that's a very interesting mechanism of whether Dagnall meant it or not. What they wound up doing was, I like this strategy of you show a team something in the first half and then you reverse it. And what that does is it takes them so far out of their intended game plan that it kind of moves it around. The raw volume of threes, I agree that like Boston got a lot of threes and they made a very small amount. If we kind of dig into some of like the deeper numbers on these kind of things, it does look a lot better in terms of trying to identify what, like, it doesn't look like, oh yeah, they got whatever they wanted. It's more like they got the type of shots, but they didn't get the quality of the shots that I think that they would have wanted otherwise, which is not surprising given that OKC is such a monster defensively, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for the Thunder, I think that those synergy numbers were awesome, and actually it helps give a little context to, you know, I think Joe and I both have been like, they got the shots up, but it's actually very interesting to see. Well, the looks weren't as clean. And the Thunder side of it, the defense, again, isn't the worry. I do still have some worries about the Thunder, though. I don't think they came out of, as a regular season team, I think they're darn near perfect. It's why at the beginning of the season was all over them, best record, Shea MVP, all this stuff. I just do still come out of this game where they looked great and they won and the vibes are awesome. J-Dub, to me, I keep having questions about. And I wanted to spring this exercise on you guys of ranking the players that we like kind of trust on these two teams, because it's like a very viable finals, potential finals matchup. I think if you ask almost everyone in NBA media right now, they would, if to give a prediction, they would say these two teams in the finals. To me, if I go through and rank the guys I trust, Shea is probably at the top. There's not another Thunder guy for a decently long stretch of time, in part because I have a lot of questions about J-Dub. In these big games, he really kind of goes missing a lot. His defense is awesome. The versatility he gives you is amazing. He does a lot of little things for sure, but he's not as reliable a bucket or a shooter or scorer or anything on that side of the ball that leaves me having questions about the Thunder at times. We can kind of get into, the whole, is there value on other teams in terms of finals odds? It's really right now is looking like it's going to be these two teams. I still have questions about both teams. If you look by the odds, they are heavy favorites right now, but I don't think there is a perfect team in basketball right now, which I think actually means it can be a fun time to take, some long shots or look a little bit, think creatively and be like, if these teams aren't perfect, what's going to slow them down and what other teams can we be looking at?
All right, so Dub had 10 points on 10 shots. He had an absolutely sick spin move on Jaylen Brown first half, but that's a highlight. 6 boards, 5 assists, and a plus 19. Tied for, that is the best for any player in the game. So they won the J-Dub minutes by the most, which isn't like indicative, like that's a team stat. That's not an individual one. I think what I would say is on the trust thing, Boston doesn't really, they have moved so far, and like I've been writing about this and emphasizing this, they have moved so far, they're leaning so far into the bit that it's not really about the individual players anymore, because they think that they can just generate this style and win, which is genuinely good basketball and pretty smart. It's efficient, smart basketball that leads to a more efficient shot that you're going to be able to outpace opponents. Like they won the title with this. Injuries aside, they were dominant. And so like it's a good model, but you have to not go too far into it. So the thing is, I'm just like, yeah, all right, but I think the Drew Holiday thing like does throw a wrench in this. A Thunder fan's probably going to say, like, look, KP was a huge factor in the first half. I don't know what happened second half, but, like, huge problem first half. They made great adjustments on KP, too, in the second half. No chat, right? So, like, that Horford-KP combo, they had a lot of problems with, especially with rebounding and at the rim stuff in the first half, and then, like, Chet's going to help with some of that. And that's fair. I don't know. Like, it's entirely possible for KP and Horford to beat Holmgren Ihart. I think that's possible. I'll say this though, and Joe, I want to get your thoughts kind of on who. Well, let's do that first. Joe, tell me who you trust the most out of these two teams, and then I have kind of a point on the finals matchup stuff.
Like individual player to get a bucket type of deal, or just trust to have. I think
it's more just like, all right, it's the last 5 minutes of a game 6. It's a 4-point game either way. Who do you trust?
You want Shea right now, like dude.
Is Chet the number one guy on both teams that you would trust the most right now?
No, I was saying want Shea. I think you want Shea. Like you want SGA. Yeah, you want SGA.
Shea,
like
not Shut.
Yeah.
Shea.
I was like, damn. I mean, I like Chet, but that's pretty high.
So let's go through the ranking and let's see. Raise your hand if you disagree as I go down.
Okay.
Shea.
Yep.
Tatum.
Yep.
Jaylen.
Yeah.
Brown. Jaylen Brown. KP?
I had Derek White next.
Derek White?
Okay. Yeah.
So you trust Derek? We trust Derek White more than J-Dub or Chet Holmgren. Okay.
I've got an interesting fifth name here.
Okay, I think this is probably where you got to go. Like, do you trust KP or J-Dub more?
I had Hartenstein. Now, this is not like to be the fifth best player, but like I want Hartenstein out on the court. And that's where I was going to ask you. Like, can they play Chet in him? Yeah. I think they can.
I think they can.
I do too, especially in the Horford minutes. That's all right. So that's 5, right? And that's 3-2 Boston. Okay, let's go. Do you want KP or J-Dub?
I want KP.
Yeah, it has to be KP.
Okay. All right. Now, do you want J-Dub or Drew Holiday?
I think you have to want J-Dub.
If we bring Chet in, but Chet's like there's like the health question. In KP, there's kind of a question mark. Like, will he even be there by that point in the postseason?
Yeah.
Right. But let's say that they're healthy. Do you want Chet, Drew, or J-Dub?
I think I would go J-Dub. I think the defensive versatility with like.
I think I'd go Chet.
Okay, so OKC gets one of those two guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll ask, do you want Drew or the other one of those two?
I had a different name above both of them. I had Horford above J-Dub and Drew.
Horford's getting up there, man.
He is
getting like.
I think it's more damning of J-Dub than like praising of Horford.
I get where you're coming from, but I also think it's important to note like J-Dub had some real big moments in the Pelicans series.
No, you're right, and I think I'm being like in the moment, kind of like reacting with my eyes.
I think J-Dub's like. I think he's really good. Like I mean, I had him above both those guys.
And this is like a good. I think it's a fun exercise to kind of rank it that way. But this is actually more my thing because this is why I like Memphis so much, and I want them to not fucking trade for Jimmy Butler is because their optionality. Because this to me is the bigger thing. If OKC needs to go through guys and find a lineup that works, if they're like, all right, Hartenstein's struggling with this, let's move him into the Horford minutes and let's start Chet, and then we'll play counter small ball 5 with Chet guarding KP, and that versatility and the athleticism will counter that. Okay, Casey Wallace isn't doing as well. Let's go to Aaron Wiggins. Let's move Lou Dort to Jaylen Brown, then we're going to move Shea over here. They have a million options, and Boston's like, sure do hope these 6 guys are good to go.
And OKC has the coach to do it too. Right. I looked up because I'm with you. I think that Chet and Hartenstein can play together. They haven't. They've been ships passing in health, but I'd like a 5 of Shea, Wiggins, J-Dub, iHart, and Chet. Mm-hmm. That's like such a fun. Like I trust that 5 a lot. And then you do have optionality off it. That doesn't even have Dort out there.
Well, here's the other thing is like, all right, if Boston's like, we're gonna go with Peyton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday in like these 3 guys or Derek White, Drew Holiday with Peyton Pritchard. And we're going to just like all of this like little guards. OKC is going to be like, no problem. Alex Caruso, Casey Wallace, and Kenrich Williams, who is having an insane year. Kenrich is playing center half the time. And it's working. Jalen Williams, the other one, had a good day today. Like, Jalen Williams had 6 boards in this game, and they were all pretty big. Like, and so that's kind of my thing here. But the final thing I kind of want to say on this is, and we'll talk MVP reaction after it. No big move in the market. 5-cent move in favor of OKC in title odds from the open of today till after the game. Like I pulled the odds before and after, and the biggest thing at DK was like a 5. Like it's 5 cents or less at every book I saw. I saw no significant movement, and that's not surprising. It's a regular season game. Like you shouldn't over-index on this game. But one thing I will say is this is a really great matchup, and I thought it was really awesome. And these are the 2 definably best teams to me, as far as like if you're power rating for a playoff future. Like it's not Boston for me right now. It's Boston. I have it Cleveland, OKC, New York, and then Boston right now. But for this current regular season moment, but if you're like, who are the 2 best teams in the NBA? I'm like the Boston Celtics and the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Cavs. I think are close. I don't think that we're gonna get it. We never get this type of matchup. Not since Warriors. It's got to be a level of Warriors Cavs where there's one team that is so much better than everybody else, and then the other in the conference there's one dude that's better than everybody else. Like, if Luka Doncic were in the Eastern Conference, we'd just be like, all right. If Jokic were in the Eastern Conference, we'd just be like, all right. Like, it's going to be Jokic versus whoever comes out of the West.
Yeah.
Is it just worth betting the Thunder then? Because right now they are slightly longer, but longer odds than Celtics. It sounds like all of us trust the Thunder more, especially in a head-to-head matchup. We think they have like the optionality. And listen, I've got a couple of cute numbers I'll throw out when we get to actual talking about title contenders, but we know that for the most part, it comes from the top tier. Basketball doesn't really surprise us all that often.
Yeah.
I think everyone sitting on this call has, several a Thunder ticket at this point. But if you are listening to this podcast and for some reason you haven't made a bet yet, I think that there is value on the Thunder. Would you guys bet it? I don't think I'm adding to my portfolio, but I think that there is value on this number right now.
I'm a sicko, so at this point, I only bet the strongest team I think in one conference versus a long shot in the other, and then flip it. So like, to me right now after this Thunder win, even though the odds aren't going to move that much, like I've picked up, like to me the best value right now is, and it's annoying to me because the books are wise to how good Dallas is. I really thought and now if they keep losing, we'll gain equity because it's like if Dallas loses in the stretch without Kyrie and Luka, what has to happen is they're like, because you lost these games, you were less likely to get a higher seed, so you were less likely to advance to the finals. Like, that's just how it works. It's not that they're not aware of how good Dallas is. They're just like, but they lost these games, so they have to move down the board. If I can just get Dallas to lose a few more games and slip behind some of these other squads, that's where I really like. I love Boston Dallas. I think that's a great exacta right now. I think that's got such good value, except for the fact that like Boston, I would love to be like, I would love if they overreacted and Boston slid, but the books are never going to get off Boston. They're going to have to lose for Boston for Boston to actually slip. But on the other hand, if you do like OKC and you're like, well, I don't really want that Eastern side. I want to bet the Thunder. I honestly think taking Thunder, like the Cavs are still low, and I don't know why, but they're still like they don't believe in that team. You can get Thunder Cavs at a really, really good price for a finals matchup. And it gets you in a really good position because it's not like Boston's going to be minus 500 versus the Cavs to start the series if they're healthy. So if you think they're going to wind up there, now they can wind up on the same side of the bracket, and that's tough, but like all the better, right? Boston has to go to Cleveland for a second round series, etc. That to me is like how you should play it. But that's just like kind of where I come from. I don't believe that we're going to get Thunder Celtics because in my experience, since Warriors Lakers or Warriors LeBron, we just don't get that. The two best teams don't wind up matching. We thought we were going to get Boston Denver. Everyone was like, what could possibly stand in the way of Boston Denver? And it turns out Jamal Murray playing like shit stands in the way of Boston Denver. So, and Minnesota being really good. So that's kind of my thought, Jim.
Yeah, but let me rephrase it then, because if you are betting only that way, then I feel like a lot of people listening, they aren't going to bet it that way, to be honest, and they want like a team
smarter than me. Yeah, I hear you.
What percent would you like if you just had to think of an implied odds? Would you make the implied odds of the Thunder higher than I think it's like plus 250 that is out there right now? If you framed it in that way in your head, or do you think it's because of the hold and because it's a highly bet into market, it's like about what you'd make it, and there's not a ton of value on that single number?
There's still a 350 at Bet Rivers.
Yeah. There's a 350 at FanDuel.
Shangri-La.
So, go ahead, Joe.
There is a plus 280 for the Northwest to win the finals at MGM. If you want,
that's interesting.
If you want a little bit of nuggets, but because I'm just gonna leave out the Timberwolves. But like, I think the plus 350 would be better. I always try to shop and see if there's like a little bit of an inconsistency there, because I do think I think the Grizzlies are still really good. And you can there's a price on the Southwest division to win at plus 850. So that's a couple different. There's a couple different teams there. Then you're getting Dallas, you're getting Memphis, you're
getting San Antonio.
You're getting San Antonio,
Houston.
Houston. Like I think that number is kind of wrong. It's on It's on DraftKings. I think you're just getting a lot of teams. I don't know how much championship equity is in, say, like Houston or like even San Antonio's too early, I think. But it does set you up to be in a position where, like, if a team can bump somebody else, because if they all kind of make it, where they're all playing and maybe none of them are necessarily playing each other, you can get a team. You can get this ticket. Can basically say, you can basically look at it and say, oh well, like, I'm going to have this in the conference finals, basically, no matter how this goes.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of figure it out from there. So I don't hate it as like a builder piece.
If you told me conference finals were Grizzlies Mavericks, I wouldn't blink an eye.
Yeah.
The Thunder are not so good that they're so dominant that I don't want to like have those other positions. And Jim, I'm just like so trained at this point to be like, you got to fade whatever is in the moment. Like whatever it is, like right now is what we should actively be going against, because the fucking playoffs are 4 months. They don't start for 4 months from now.
Well, in all fairness, I literally just said that neither of these teams seem perfect to me, even today when they seem perfect. So right. I totally get it. It's more that I very much am with you on that, but I also am in the NBA is also the like don't overthink it league, and like usually the best team with the best like usually they come from the top 6 in the odds. It's like no longer than plus 1,000 basically. Yeah, right?
You're right about that, right? Where it's like we're not looking for long shots here. That's why like I don't want a Houston ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
But what I do think is that we're shifting from, it used to be like it's going to be the top team or the second best team. You know, it's going to be one of those two, right? Like there were years, 2017 is a good one. It was going to be the Warriors or the Spurs. One of those two teams was going to win that year. Like even if the Cavaliers had gotten to even if the Spurs, like let's say the Spurs had beaten the Warriors that year, which I think they were live to do in 2017, they would have beaten the Cavs. Like the Cavs were just not good enough in 2017.
Well, and I do think that we're in a new era where like it is more flattened. And I think that last year kind of fooled us because of some of the injuries that, and again, every time I bring up the injuries, I'm not trying to take away from Boston. That like their health is paramount to their success.
No, here's the thing. When it was in the moment, I was like, you guys are not appreciating what they're doing and how they're playing. And they're so selfless and they're so precise and they defend and they play together. Jason Tatum sacrificed to make his team better. That's what you should want out of sports. They deserve a lot of credit for how they played. And they kicked the shit out of the Mavericks when they got to there. When they were the trendiest pick. The Sharps were like, oh no, this is Boston. That was one of the funniest ones, because usually it's like we're kind of split, right? Is like some of us like one side and some of us like the other, and this kind of, and it was like ESPN Mavericks, and every sharp betting show was like, oh fuck no, we're betting Boston. Are you insane? Like they're gonna kill them, and we made a lot of money on it. I want to credit Boston while also being like, you did beat 3 teams missing literally their best player in a superstar league. You beat the Heat without Jimmy Butler, the Cavaliers without Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell, and the Indiana Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton when you should have lost game 1. Like,
yeah, I agree with you 100%. We can give credit while also saying I think we are moving into a new era where there, like, it is. I think it's less predictable, and I think that it is smart to not lock in on these teams too early.
The implied odds I think is really good on this, and I need to just memorize them because I'm just not good at math. But like, I do wish that the books would honestly just be like, here's your implied odds, so you can just look at them. Because like plus 350, we'll often do this in content where it's like, that feels too long, that feels too short, and it's like it's 22%. Yes or no? Do you think there is a slightly better than 1 in 5 chance that the Oklahoma City Thunder win the title? That's your question here.
Yeah, if you're I think it's yes. Where do you go?
I do too.
Yeah,
and that makes it a good bet.
Yeah, I think
I'm with you on that.
The only reason that it wouldn't be a good bet is if you have a portfolio where you're starting to like I don't know. Like I try to think of it in the portfolio sense, right? Like I think that you can have there can be individual bets that are good, but if you're a futures bettor like we are, and you're building a portfolio of positions, you can't, like, you have to take in your other positions into account, where you'd say like, okay, like I get it, that's a good bet, but I think that there's better times to buy in than like right now, or I already bought in, I don't need to bet it again, even though I think it's still good.
Like, we wind up in that battle where we're like, do I want to like that? But to Jim's kind of, I think one of the things that Jim's kind of hinting at here is you do that thing that where we're like, but I don't want to get it unless I get the best number. Like, why would I bet 350? It could be 500. What if Shea gets hurt?
Yeah.
And it's like, you can bet it again later if you're doing this as a portfolio, the way that we bet this over the course of a year.
Yeah.
The answer is OKC at plus 350 is a plus EV bet because we think they have a better than 22% chance to win the NBA Finals. If that goes down, we will not feel differently. Hopefully. Like, that's the important thing to remember is, like, if the Thunder, especially, if we get to March and it's like, I don't know, Thunder have lost 5 of 6. I don't know. Like, remember this moment and them beating Boston because they're still this team. Like, you will evolve and change. But, like, this is more real basketball than what you're going to see in March.
Yeah.
That's, like, my bigger thing here. Is this is, like, the time when you find meaningful results.
I mean, those teams clearly cared today. Like, that was... Yeah. It wasn't a playoff game. It's not, you're not going to get a playoff game in the regular season, but they were going at it.
And so, like, another good example of this is, like, all right, do the Cavaliers have a better than, or do the Thunder have a better than 22% chance? Yes. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 11-1 still. They have an 8.3% chance. They are on pace for 70 plus wins, and the market continuously tells you, nope, they're fake. They're just a regular season team.
Can I pitch this is a juicy bet, like, because I literally mean there's a lot of juice on this. Championship winning state. California is plus 800, New York is plus 850, Texas is plus 850, Florida is plus 2200. The only other one is the field at minus 275. I think that honestly isn't a long enough number because you're getting Boston, Oklahoma City, you're getting Cleveland, you're getting Denver. If you wanted Denver, like you're getting like every team that's at the top except for the Knicks and the Mavericks.
There's too much stuff built into that. That's like stuff that we'd be like, no.
Maybe. Like I think there's a lot of outs that I kind of would want. Like you're getting Memphis. Like I think that this is as long. I've seen this now.
You get the Bucks too. I'm intrigued.
I've seen this as long as like minus. I think I saw minus 550. So minus 275. I just think it's a little light. I think that you're just getting so many teams that you also like you're getting the two favorites too. Like you're getting Boston and Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
You're basically just not betting on the Knicks or the Lakers and the Warriors or Dallas. That's what
Dallas
it is.
Is the big one. I think that's you're I feel like Matt, you're most hesitant because of Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing I would tell you is just like, look, I understand that they feel irrelevant. I am just telling you the history of the NBA over the last 25 years. If you just bet the Los Angeles Lakers every year to win the NBA title, you come out plus ahead.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's insane.
Can I briefly make a pitch that I know you two will both shoot down? The other LA team, the Clippers, are out there at 80-1.
Them too.
Again, this is I don't actually think that they'll win out, but to me this is a portfolio piece. They are the 5th best team right now in the West and just got Kawhi back. He didn't look, he played 19 minutes. I don't think even without him in the cap, they're a decent team with Harden and just depth of wings and Ty Lue and that can kind of translate to the postseason pretty well. Again, this isn't a Western Conference that we think things are gettable. So long numbers like this, the 80-1 is popping off much. It's like double what some of the other odds are out there for the Clippers. I might add it to my portfolio. It's in my version of your, bet one side and bet the other team to get some of those long numbers in the portfolio. The Clippers have been really nice at home. They've won 12 of their last 14. That wall is actually kind of seems like it's impacting opponent free throws by like a decent amount. If they get to host a first round series and now they're in the conference, the conference semis, that ticket has already paid for itself all over. I'm intrigued by it, Matt. I know you won't be on it at all. Joe, are you at all intrigued, or are you with Matt on the no?
Dude, 80-1. I mean, we bet them at 20. We bet them at every other number. Like 80-1 sounds great.
Celtics to beat Los Angeles Clippers is 55-1.
It's shorter?
It's shorter.
They took off some of it.
So, but that way you get to hedge with the Clippers. You get to
That's
bet
so
on the
funny.
Clippers versus the Celtics in the finals. What's a better dream than that for you, Jim?
Oh, that is truly dream. And wait, one more for you guys. Spurs 400-1.
Yeah.
They would have the best player in like every series but one, maybe two.
Look, I just got done watching Wembanyama in person on Friday night, and it was a spiritual experience.
Dude, they have wins over the Nuggets and the Thunder. Joe, you shared that tweet earlier. Here are OKC's losses. It's SGA got blocked at the buzzer. Chet got hurt. Dort missed a game-winning 3. J-Dub missed a game-winning 3. And then a 6-point loss in San Antonio. San Antonio handed them their only legit loss of the season. Like, the ceiling of San Antonio.
Look, if you're going to go, I get going for that. Here's an easier one, or at least to bankroll that bet with. The Spurs right now are plus 350 to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that, I'm already betting that because,
Yeah.
I'll be talking a lot more about Victor Wembanyama over the next couple of weeks, but he is. I felt the first 3 weeks when he was struggling and Jason Tatum was averaging 30 a game, and I was like, num. This dinner versus Brandon Anderson is so good because Brandon Anderson in our preseason bet, we have a dinner bet on Tatum. I took Tatum will finish ahead of Wembanyama on the MVP ballot, and he took Wembanyama, and I was like, this is gonna be a breeze. And now I'm like, shit, I'm gonna lose this. Like, Tatum's just like really good, and Wembanyama, for a 500 team every night is like, are you fucking kidding me? It's insane. It's ridiculous.
It's the third best BPM right now.
By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you have discernible income, okay, like you have income just because you're betting. If you live in an NBA city, when Victor Wembanyama comes to town, spend that income and go watch him.
It's cheaper for me to literally fly to not go to watch these games in fucking New York.
Dude, Joe, I'm gonna be in New Orleans in March. Try and see if they'll come down there. We'll go like front row for like $10 down in New Orleans.
It's insane. Like, I literally have almost planned an entire vacation around like going to watch the Knicks just anywhere else, because it's so outrageously expensive to watch them in New York.
There's a train to DC, yes.
Yeah, you could take Amtrak. I mean, I'd basically have to drive to New York to get on the train. So
yeah, but if you like, I made the Ferris Bueller tweet after I watched him. I was like, if you have the means, I highly recommend picking up tickets to see Victor Wembanyama. It is choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Like, it was incredible.
My buddy in San Antonio, stay on his couch.
Well, and what was great was I wasn't able. I was sick last year when he came to Denver, and so I missed him the first time. So this is my first time seeing him in person, and he's so much better than he was last year. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, it's just amazing. MVP real quick, because we got to get to best bets. But Shea moved 30 cents. So while title odds were just like, we don't care, it's a regular season game in January, Shea's DraftKings title MVP odds moved 30 cents on the day, which that's actually a pretty significant move in one day for one of the favorites. So he's up there, and he's now the favorite. Shea has taken over, and he's the MVP favorite in the market consensus. I feel like if the straw poll were taken now, Shea's probably ahead, but I think it's really close. I think my bigger question, though, and Joe, Jim, I know that you hate this market, but I do think, like, look, the Bucks just lost to the Nets. It's they won the cup and then immediately went back down, and it's struggle time again. Giannis's advanced metrics are not going to be good enough, so it's going to be box score stuff, and wherever, like a 5th seed in the East maybe, unless they turn on the Jets. Like, we can have the conversation if they push and be like, Giannis is back in it. I don't want to say that, like, this is done, but I think right now I'm confident in saying, like, we're down to it with Luka out. It's a 2-man race.
No,
I think Victor. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you were 100% right. I was on kind of the intrigued by Giannis last time. It already has, the odds have tripled. You're 100% right. They did amp it up for the in season. I kind of thought, okay, they're going. They've lost 4 or 5 since. They clearly cared about that, and they're like, now we're just going to coast the postseason. The other thing about this is, Giannis, part of it was he is still leading the league in scoring, but Shea over the last, like, basically, it looked like Dagnall and the Thunder kind of slow rolled Shea the first, like, 6 or 7 games, and his minutes were lower. Then ever since, it seemed like he didn't love it, and his scoring was down a little bit. Ever since, his minutes are up a little bit. He's up to like 35 minutes a game. And over that stretch, he would be averaging the amount to lead the league in scoring. So I think he's going to take the scoring crown from Giannis. He's going to be on the best team with the best record. And I think that, there is narrative to this. And part of the reason I was hesitant on Jokic before the season is I do think the 4 and 5 matters. And I know that it's frustrating to some people that matters, but I do think it matters. I think that voters really just want to give it to Shea this year. I think that's a term I've heard you use before, like that the voters want to give this award. And I do think that Shea is the one that people want to give it to right now, and that he is living up to everything that they want to. And it's like, all right, this is not going to be that hard of a discussion. So I do think Shea is, correctly the favorite right now. I don't think there's any reason to bet into it, but I think that it's notable that as soon as Shea gave people a reason to become the favorite, he there wasn't any like hesitation. He just became the favorite.
Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I hate to cap an award and just say, I think it's pretty done. But I think that we are between, Shea, who, like Jim said, everybody's been talking about. There's been a lot of hype around Shea, just saying, is it his year? He was almost there last year. Are we going to give it to? Were we going to give it to Jokic now? Again, right? I think that the one concern that I would have is the West is just, it's so tight, right? So the Nuggets are 20-14. They're 2.5 games out of the 2 seed. If it's Thunder and let's say the Thunder fall off like a little bit, and it gets close, where they're close in standings, where you have Oklahoma City number 1, Denver's number 2, and Jokic is just putting up these bonkers numbers.
Triple-double.
He, again, probably doesn't have an all-star on his team. Maybe Jalen Williams is making the all-star game, and then everybody's like, look, Shea's got an all-star, and he's got Chet, and he's got this guy, and he's got this guy, whatever. And then you look at Jokic again, and you go, he's still doing it, and he's got no all-stars. I think that that's where I would say maybe there could be a concern. I think that if you look in the Eastern Conference, like Cleveland's been incredible, but Donovan Mitchell's stats aren't going to pop off the page properly. I think if the Cavs do regress, you have to look at it and say, like, well, who is coming up there? Because I think that there's been, it's kind of funny, but it feels like there's been a consensus that Tatum isn't good enough to win MVP. And we're not going to give him MVP when there's these other guys around. So if you're not going to give it to somebody on Boston, the only team that's really within shooting distance then is New York. And I don't think that the advanced metrics stack up for either Brunson or Cat, even though I think there's a little bit of narrative that you could build around Cat. I don't think that the advanced numbers are going to be there for when you compare him to, obviously Jokic or SGA. So I think that if you have a Shea position and you don't have a Jokic position, I don't mind getting a Jokic position at plus money right now, if that's the way you wanted to go. I also think there's going to be a little bit of opportunity to even wait, because I think that this gap might widen where you can maybe get Jokic at like 3-1, 4-1, something like that. And then you could actually have an effective 1-2 position on the market.
If you're curious about the numbers, and it's not great audio, but I just will kind of run this down real quickly. Jokic is averaging 31.5 points per game, 13 rebounds, and 9.7 assists.
It's insane.
He's shooting 55% from the field and 47% from 3. Of the top candidates, so Shea, for Shea, Jokic, Tatum, Giannis. I've excluded Luka because Luka's not going to get.
Put Wemby on there soon.
I am going to put Wemby on. He's going to be tier 1 for me.
Yeah.
Like Jokic is tied with Giannis for effective field goal percentage. Think about that. Think about how much Giannis dunks. Like I don't even know what to do with it, and so the debate is I can see this happening. We may legitimately have a situation where it's like, how are you not going to give the MVP to a 31-point scorer?
Well, Jokic could easily average a triple-double and lead the league in scoring. Like, those are both very viable outcomes.
And it's not like an inefficient. It doesn't feel the same as when like Westbrook did it.
Right.
And like I don't mean that in like a negative way. I think that what Westbrook did
it was a
awesome.
thing. So
but
a big argument I had when I did the breakdown of that MVP season is I was like, look, Russ is primarily an offensive contributor, and the offense for OKC is 17th. They're not good.
Yeah.
Versus when you look at on court, if you do 20% usage, minimum 30 games played, Nikola Jokic has the number 1 on-court offensive rating. No team's offense is better with any other 20% usage player than Denver's with Jokic. But what I was actually going to say is, if OKC wins 70 games, which is they're on pace,
really viable.
If OKC wins 70 games, are you not going to give it to a 31-point scorer on a 70-win team? Even if Joker gets to 53 wins and the 3 seed averaging a 31-point triple, my brain will explode trying to parse through that, and I do this shit every day. Like, it's crazy. It's nuts. It's absolutely wild. Okay. Let's do best bets for Monday, and we'll get out of here. Let's go around the horn. Joe Dellera, what are your best bets for Monday in the association?
I like the New York Knicks -11 and Damian Lillard over 22.5 points. I wouldn't be surprised to see 23.5, so 23.5 is fine too.
Jim Turvey, your bets.
Toronto Raptors +6.5. Los Angeles Clippers alt spread -7.5 +330 on that. Najee Marshall over 13.5 PRA.
I can't believe this, but I'm on Knicks -11 too. I'm on Raptors +6.5 too. I'm on the Clippers on an alt line too. The only thing I have is Pacers Nets over, and that's like I will do that one first in a very, very quick manner. The Pacers offense has absolutely kicked into a high gear. They're much better than they were at the start of the season, and the market is still catching up in regards to those numbers. If you look at it, the Pacers in away games, the over is 55% this season. In Nets home games, the over is 53% this season. I have this projected at 236 versus a 222.5 number. Now, Nets have really cratered since they decided to, trade everyone and so they can get Cooper Flag. But I still think Indiana lets everyone score. It's going to be a fast-paced game. It's going to be a hyper-athletic game. It's going to go over. I like the over in this game, 222.5. That's my best bet that is original on this podcast. Jim, let's start with you. Give me the cap on the Raptors.
Yeah, so the Raptors literally do not have a single minute this season with Quickly, Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. But those 4 without RJ have a +15.5 net rating in 44 minutes. RJ is questionable for tomorrow. This team, honestly isn't that bad. Even healthy, even dinged up, they're covering spreads like maniacs this season. In games that did not count for the in-season tournament, they're 19-11-1 against the spread this season. Now, on the other side of that is the Bucks, who were 5-1 against the spread in the in-season tournament, won the in-season tournament. Outside of those games, they're 18-1 against the spread. So we have basically the best team against the spread versus the worst team against the spread, with the team that is best against the spread starting to get entirely healthy, with a team that's pretty, I certainly not as bad as their numbers would make them look from a surface level when they have Quickly, Grady Dick, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. The Bucks have shown nothing to prove that they can cover spreads this season. Again, I might sprinkle a tiny bit on the money line. I'm not really going to look at this money line, but the Bucks did just lose to the Nets, very recently. They've lost 4 out of 5 in general. They failed to cover in 4 out of 5 as well. This Bucks team is fine, kind of floating to the postseason, and this Raptors team, maybe you want to bet them first half. They are going to give the Bucks a run for the money tomorrow with a lineup that's finally kind of coming together and actually has a decent level of talent on it.
I want to go look. I'm with you on this bet. You do this where I'm with you, and then I ask you for the cap, and then you say the things that make me mad. They lost I think 9 in a row.
Yeah, but what were they against the spread in those 9 games?
Right, and I get that. So you could be like, they're not that bad against the number. They're good against the number. That's fair. I think it's fair to say that the market underestimates the Raptors. But they're bad.
But that quartet plus 15.5 net rating. Their starters have there was an interesting starting crew. I think things start to fall apart. They don't really have any depth. I'm not interested by very many of the people coming off the bench, but they have that starting, foursome, and if they have RJ back, that starting five, there's a decent talent there. Now you can always cherry pick the starter, like starters playing together are always going to have decent net ratings, but I don't know, that starting five you have no interest in. Like this Nets team as a whole, would you set them as like a 20-win team, a 30-win team, a 40-win team?
So the only thing I will say is 2 days ago, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, Grady Dick, and Emmanuel quickly played in a basketball game. And they lost to the Orlando Magic, who started this starting five. Caleb Houston, Tristan Da Silva, Goga Batazde, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Jalen Suggs, who got hurt halfway through and played 13 minutes with back spasms, Jim.
It's very fair.
So, like, again, I like the Raptors because I think that the market is overrating the Nets, and I think it's underrating the Raptors. So I'm with you on this. But they are terrible. Just know that they're honestly, because this has been the thing. I need to look this up really quick because it's been like one of the funniest things. I always talk about how, hey, if you're gonna bet the dog, you need to bet the money line because that's what they do. Is they always cover, and they win outright, and it's not true with the Toronto Raptors this season.
Yeah.
They are hilariously this season when they are a dog and they cover. The Raptors are just 7-13 straight up. So,
and the Bucks are kind of the inverse. They have covered. They've won many games they have not covered. There was a live opportunity to bet the Bucks that last game. They won the 20-0 run to end the game, and then lost in overtime. I bet the Bucks money line at one point at a decent number. I was like, they went on the amazing run. I was like, they got it, and then they fell apart in overtime, which was pretty funny.
Raptors +7. Oh, we're doing this. Put this one in the quick slip, David Payne. Raptors +7, Bucks money line +271. Let's go.
Oh, I like that a lot.
That's electric.
We're hitting that. I like that a lot. Speaking of the Orlando Magic and their pets' heads falling off, Joe Dellera, tell me why you like the Knicks to lay the smackdown on Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what's up with Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs got wheeled out in a wheelchair due to back spasms. He didn't play on Sunday. Apparently, he might play against the Knicks, which is just like
I thought he slipped a disc, but apparently it's just back spasms.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he got wheelchaired out. Like I feel like I'd be a little surprised if he plays. Either way, Orlando's offense is horrific right now. Like they have one of the worst offenses in the league, and they just are like a bare bones right now. And honestly, I'm getting a little older. My back hurts sometimes. When your back hurts, sometimes it just pops back up again. If you had if you just had an incident where you had to get wheelchaired off the court, it wouldn't be crazy to say hey, maybe we should limit this guy a little bit, even if he does come back, or it's going to be a little ginger or whatever the situation is, right? Either way, if Jalen Suggs doesn't play, we just saw Cole Anthony when he had the opportunity to lead the team, right, in terms of offense, usage, whatever, against the Utah Jazz, who also played nobody. This was like a summer league game, and Cole Anthony looked like he was on the court in Tim's that he wore to the dunk contest the other year, and just couldn't make a shot. New York, when they play a team with a bottom 10 offense this year, is 15-0, and they score 123.1 points per 100. That's their offensive rating. Defensive rating is 107.3. They're a plus 15.8 in terms of net rating at cleaning the glass. So when they play a bad team,
I know you got that up. What's the spread differential? They've got that there.
It's plus 4.2.
That's great.
So they are smoking these teams. And the thing is, we've seen it now. I know Cat got it seemed like he left the game late at the end of the fourth quarter. They said it was a knee thing. Honestly, the Knicks were just down double digits, and it was probably just you took a hard fall. See you in the locker room, because he said he did a full workout after the game. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be a real issue. This is a game where, and honestly, even if he doesn't play, I think that New York has enough firepower to to still put up a number here against the Orlando Magic. This is just a team that can't keep up with New York offensively. And New York coming off of a couple bad losses, realistically, they probably should have been able to beat Oklahoma City. They were kind of in control of that game the entire game. And then they just had a big letdown spot against Chicago. So I think that this is a spot they're going to get right. They're going to be locked in. -11, sign me up. And if Suggs doesn't play, I just don't really know how Orlando is going to put up any type of scoring effort against New York unless they just get crazy shot variance.
I make this 13.5. The Knicks are 57% ATS at home. The Orlando Magic are 42% ATS on the road. They're great. They continue to be a great home team. They are not a great road team that's carried over from last season. Yeah, I feel good about this one. I'm in on the Knicks to win by, the Magic full strength. They're just a very different team, and they are not full strength. Jim, I'm very curious on Clippers alt spread here about why this specific number. So the Los Angeles Clippers are taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wolves are a 2.5 point favorite. Why do you want 7.5 the other way?
Yeah, so to me, this is a line that I always kind of will just like glance at the lines first, see if anything pops out. This line instantly, I was like, this smells like a rat line. Like, this is insane. Like, the Clippers, the vibes are really good. Kawhi just came back. They just had one of their best wins of the season. On the other side of things, you got Anthony Edwards. The vibes seem terrible. He went for 53 on 31 shots, 2 assists compared to 6 turnovers. It seems like they are in meltdown mode over there, and they're 2.5 point favorites over a Clippers team that's arguably been better than them this season. So it smelled really weird. And with those games, honestly, I don't love to take just the standard spread, because a lot of times Vegas knows that the sharps out there who are keeping that number at that where it is, something's going on there that I'm missing. But if I want to be right, I want to be like really right. And I think that if the Clippers are winning this game, it's because the Timberwolves are melting down. Kawhi is, he was a plus 22 in his first game back. There was no, issue putting him back into the offense. So the 7.5 was just that I wanted to make sure I found an exact number to give out here. I'd actually love 6.5. Fiddles talked about kind of that 6.5 tipping point. But when I was looking around before, right now, all I could find was a 7.5 at plus 330 at FanDuel. So I wouldn't mind 6.5, just basically on the Clippers to win by margin here at a significant plus money, because if they win this, I think it is that, the Wolves' woes continue, but the Wolves looked like they were melting down before Christmas, and then they went out and got a nice win. Now, again, Luka went out that game, and they really haven't had that many great things to stand on, which is why I'm like, this line smells really weird. So I don't want to take the baseline. I want to try and get some plus money on it where I'm like, all right, the read was really right, or just variance. There's also a lot of variance that can come into play in NBA games as well. So I definitely, I don't want to take the Clippers plus 2.5. That's not where I want to be. I want to take the Clippers to win by a decent number at a plus money.
Clippers as dogs are 8-3 straight up this season when they cover. And when they win outright, their margin of victory is 7.5.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. Nailed it.
On the dot.
Thanks, Vandal.
Nailed it.
Led me right to the water.
Damian Lillard over 22.5 points. I should have hit this earlier. Joe, give me the cap real quick on that.
So basically, I just think this line's a little bit too low after he just had a couple bad games. He had a bad game against the Blazers where everybody was on him because it was, it's a revenge game. But I mean, I don't know how much of a revenge game it is when you ended up with the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, I guess he could have been in Miami in that dumpster fire too, but he's not there, so you should probably be a little bit more thankful. But look, he's hit this. He's hit this in 67% of games this season. He's averaging 24.7 points per game, and it's also a pretty good spot against the Raptors. He's 5 for 6 against the Raptors over the past couple of seasons, averaging 29.3 points per game. Raptors play pretty fast. I also think that this is probably one of the first games where they're really healthy. So like Jim kind of alluded to, and you also mentioned, I think it's going to be a little bit of a closer game. I don't think that we're going to see as much of a blowout. And the Raptors do tend to play with a little bit of pace. And they don't really, I wouldn't say that they have a great defensive option to necessarily go throw at Damian Lillard. I think that they have more options, honestly, on the interior to deal with Giannis a little bit. Pirtle Island, as some might say. But I do think that this is a good spot for Dame, and I like him to go over 22.5 points, or 23.5 if it goes there. Either way, I think the line is just a touch low for this game and for this matchup.
And Jim Turvey, Najee Marshall over 13.5 PRA.
Yeah, so he's going to be coming off the suspension, returning to a Mavericks team that is without Luka and Kyrie. So he'll have some fresh legs. Honestly, he might be a little pissed off. He got the longer suspension of the two, which I think caused a little Twitter banter there. He's going against a Memphis team that finally is starting to show some of the wear and tear. That injury report this season has been crazy. Their last time out, they finally started to look a little gassed. They still play at a really fast pace, which is great news for this. There should be possessions aplenty. But the biggest thing is without Luka and Kyrie on the court, he has the biggest usage jump. He has the highest usage of any Mav this season. He's got 27.8% usage with those two off the court this season. That's up from his kind of standard 18 to 19% for his career. The only other game that he played without the two of them this season, he had 15 points plus rebounds plus assists, and that was a game he went 4 of 12 against a slower paced team. So it seems like kind of a niche little prop here, but without Luka and Kyrie, I think he has the opportunity to have himself a pretty good game on Monday.
I love this prop. I love it.
Joe, do not smash it before I can get it. I swear to God, you and Brandon bet that posted that Wemby prop before I could even bet it the other day for most of it.
No, I'm not going to post it. I think I'm going to get down on it though. But we'll talk about it.
As we're recording this, the Suns have benched Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic. This is look, I could be wrong. I'm pretty confident this is trade related.
Wow.
The two most likely teams for Jimmy Butler right now are the Memphis Grizzlies and the Phoenix Suns, based off everything I can tell. Golden State's a no. Houston's a no. Dallas literally cannot do the move unless they were to salary dump somebody to get out of the second apron. They literally can't do. They don't have contracts to match, so they can't do it. So Memphis is the only team I haven't heard a no on, and the Suns are the only team I've heard a possible yes on. So that conversation I think continues to be ongoing. The Suns are 3.5 point dogs versus the Philadelphia 76ers. I would tell you to keep an eye on that one and be very careful if you're looking at the Suns. Be very careful with moving that, because I think that they're taking a good hard look at whether or not they want to add Jimmy Butler. Memphis, likewise, I would tell you to be pretty careful with them for a little bit, because I'm not reporting that they're in advanced talks or anything like that. Just that the Denver Nuggets, as far as I have been told, are not in conversations for Jimmy Butler actively currently at this time. And so we're down to just a handful of teams. And look, Miami's going to move him now. So be careful with the Jimmy Butler stuff related when you're cruising the markets. Those are our best bets. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, for getting this out on audio. Bridie and Gifford for getting this out on youtube.com/The Action Network. If you want to tail some of the best bets from this episode, be sure to check out the quick slip links in the podcast and video description. So you can just go ahead and click them on in there and bet these with them. We'll be back tomorrow night. It's me and Jay Money for best bets tomorrow, possibly reacting to a Jimmy Butler trade. We'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.